Montreal. All right, awesome. As I mentioned, feel free to go ahead and share LinkedIn profiles. I think that's a great way to meet other folks who are on the call as well. But as I've advertised, we've got a short amount of time here because I got to try to do this, well, at least go from idea to demo in 20 minutes. So let's just go ahead and get started. Hi, everyone. My name is Michael Hirsch. I'll do a more formal intro at the end just because I want to get into this right now. So, all right, here we go. History is repeating itself. We've had this happen before, and it's happening again. A new divide, a digital divide, maybe you might want to call it, is happening among knowledge workers. It happened, if you're old enough like me to remember, when computers started actually entering mainstream workforce. Then it happened again when the internet started to take over. It happened again when mobile started to take over. There were those who understood the new technology, who understood how to take advantage of it, who understood how to monetize against it, who understood how to leverage it, and those who didn't. And the exact same thing is happening right now with AI. And we're getting further and further apart. People who are using AI on a regular basis and people who are not using AI. Now, to be sure, the technology is growing and advancing every day, so it does require that you sort of stay with it. But no qualms about this. In my opinion, we are starting to see a separation of who is an AI-enabled worker and who is not, and an AI-enabled product manager and an AI-enabled product team. So I ask you this question to think for yourself, reflect for a moment. What side of that divide do you want to be on? Now you're here today, which means you've already probably self-selected that you want to be on the right side of that, the side where you're going to be using AI to your advantage. I'll ask you the next question though, which is, what about your team? If you have a team, or if you aspire to have a team, or if you're going to be having a team, or if one of your focus for New Year's resolution is to get a new role with the team, etc., which side of that divide do you want your team to be on? Because as a product leader, your team is a direct representation of you. In fact, you are measured and judged by the quality and output and character, if you will, of your team. So, not too long ago, the way we went as a product person from idea to prototype, we could talk about our ideas in text or in Word document or in a PowerPoint, but nothing ever brings an idea to life quite like an actual prototype for somebody to look at and use and touch and experiment with, whether it's an executive or whether it's an actual customer or somebody from user testing. But the way we did it was the PM would write down some specs, a UX person would probably come in and create some wireframes, an engineer would do some coding, you'd review it, you'd do some iteration. Oh, I didn't want that, or can you change this, or can you add that? You'd go around and around, and you'd end up with a functional prototype. And if you were lucky, that was 2 to 3 days. Today, I'm going to show you how you can do that in 20 minutes. Now, I don't know that I would take my final 20-minute functional prototype and ship it off to the CEO and say, take a look at this, but I'm going to be really, really close to it. So what do AI-driven product teams do today? They do this. They know this. They take a product manager, they combine some AI tools with that person, and they're going to have a functional prototype in about 20 minutes. That's what I'm going to show you how to do today. So that's what I'm going to attempt. I'm going to do a quick definition of MVP. I'm going to create a functional prototype. I'm going to create a one-page brief, and I'm going to do it all in 20 minutes, and I'm going to do it without a safety net below. So here we go. I'm going to start with the functional prototype and defining MVP, and we'll go from there. So what is this I'm going to do? What am I going to build? I had an idea not too long ago. My kids are a little bit older now, but when they were this age, at about 6 years old, studies show kids are ready to start learning about allowance and money and decisions like that, spending decisions, savings decisions. They're about ready at 6 or so years old. But what we found in the research is that kids are getting smartphones at around 11 or 12 years old. So there's this disconnect of what happens in between when, as a parent, you're trying to teach your children about money and making decisions and giving them allowance, but there's no smartphone, which is ultimately how these kids are going to be saving, spending, and using their money, right? My kids used to look at me at the cash like, well, what do I do with this? So the idea is very simple. It's an app that would be on a parent's phone, probably have a web interface as well, to allow tracking of allowance and teach some early lessons, some important early lessons about money to kids aged 6 to 12. So here we go. Let's jump into it. I'm going to switch sharing and I'm going to go over to a tool called V0. Uh, I was doing my prototyping leading up to today in Claude, but it was giving me a bunch of errors most recently. So they're doing some things there, part of the nature of AI. So I'm going to do it in V0. I will use Claude later for the one sheet executive brief and go from there. So let's do this here. I have an idea for an app on a phone and also web-based for tracking kids' allowance balances. I want to build a functional prototype. I want to make sure this prototype can run inside the V0 console, but the screen aspect ratio should be that of a smartphone. My thinking for the landing page is I want to show the kid's name, the kid's age. I want to show how much weekly allowance they earn. And I want to show their allowance divided into 3 buckets because that's a good way for kids to learn about managing money. Bucket number 1 is going to be the bucket for spending. Bucket number 2 is long-term savings, and bucket number 3 is going to be charity. For this prototype, let's say the kid's name is Michael. He's 10 years old. He earns $12 a week in allowance. $9 of that goes into spending, $2 goes to savings, and $1 goes to charity. Let's start with reasonable balances in the 3 accounts, $44 in the spending, $18 in savings, and $15 in charity. I also want to show when the next week's allowance is going to be paid, and I want to show uh, somewhere how much each bucket gets every week. And finally, the UX should be playful and child-friendly and fun with bright colors and use iconography where possible. Okay, so I just gave kind of a lot of description here, but not really a ton, right? I gave a little bit of what I'm trying to do. So let's go ahead and let her rip. V0 is going to go ahead, read through this, and it's going to start to build a prototype. So we're going to let this run for a few seconds. Now, I was a little vague purposely in terms of functionality. We're going to add stuff to it. I'll add interactivity to it in the next step here. But the reason I was is because I do want the AI to do a little bit of creative thinking here for me, come up with some ideas, come up with some ways of presenting things, because I generally have an idea of what I want this to do and how I want it to look. Also, if you have questions, go ahead and put them in chat. I will look at that. And also, folks, I'm going to stay as long as needed to answer any questions. So I'll stay after the 30 minutes are up and keep on answering questions. But we'll be done with the demo by then. All right, here we go. Michael's Piggy Bank. Love it. I didn't say call it a piggy bank. 10 years old, I get $12. The next one is, I don't know why it picked 7/14/2023. Interesting. Okay, fine. I've got some spending. I get $9 a week. I've got savings and I've got some charity. Okay. Oh, my total balance. That's cool. Didn't ask for that, but all right. Okay, cool. Let's start to put some like interactivity in here. So we got kind of the idea of what this is starting to look like. Let me just expand my screen so we can see the whole thing. Great. Can you update the dates so it's current? So the next allowance should be January 4th, 2025. That's bugging me a little bit. Also, let's go ahead and start to add some interactivity behind each of these 3 cards. Behind the spending card, let's go ahead and show some goals that Michael is trying to buy, some larger expense items that he's sort of saving up for being able to spend on. And let's add some educational content as well. Behind the savings card, let's show savings growth over time. And let's also put an interactive tool that shows how that savings can grow even faster if Michael saves more than $2 a week. And behind the charity card, let's show the impact of the money saved so far and the impact of more money being saved and contributing to charity Let's show the impact to child-friendly charitable causes. Let's put some educational content behind the charity card and also some educational content behind the savings card as well. Okay, let's let her rip. So now I'm going to try and get some interactivity in this. So it's going to go ahead and start to do that. Matthew, I see your question. Can you add reference images, links to existing app, or even a design library? You can. In fact, you can say, can you emulate this kind of a UI, or can you try to replicate? And it will do a pretty good job. And then, of course, in V0, you can go even further with that. But again, I'm just trying to say, how do we do this as clean and quick and simply and rapidly, I guess, as possible. Okay, so it's doing its thing right now. It's adding some functionality. Um, Good. All right. We're doing all right on time. The progress bar percentage wasn't making sense. I agree. I'll take a look at that in a minute. What other options? So I think Claude actually, when it's not throwing a bunch of errors, which is only recently, does a really good job of doing some basic prototyping using a React prototype. Okay, here we go. You know what I think these are? These progress bars. Is this just showing that this is? Yeah, I don't know what these are. Good question. Okay, good. So let's go ahead and see what we have here. Looks like we've got some interactivity. Oh, look at this. Okay, I didn't tell it what I was saving for, but that Michael wanted to be saving for a new bike and a video game. He's almost got that, and some art supplies. Oh, tip: try to prioritize your spending on things that are important to you. Okay, it's good for a 10-year-old to start learning about some of this stuff. Okay, what happens here under savings? Oh, okay. We've got some growth shown. Oh, and I can actually do, let's add some more savings, and it's going to show me what it's going to look like if I save even more a week. Okay, it might be nice to maybe show the baseline number there as well, but at least I can start to see what that looks like. Um, so not bad, again, for 5 minutes worth of work. Let's see what charity did for us. Okay, so I can get 10 meals for hungry kids, $5 more to plant 5 trees. Donations can help make a difference. Every little bit needs help. Okay, this is great. Um, all right, excellent. And it updated our date here. Okay, good, good. Okay, so we're getting somewhere. I want to push this a little further before I jump to the next step, just because why not? It'll be more fun. Can you also add somewhere where the child can select chores to earn additional allowance? And with the interactivity, can you add a little bit more playful animation? And can you also add a little bit more educational content behind each of the 3 cards? And the progress bars on the 3 cards don't make any sense. So can we just get rid of them and simply just show the balances and the amount per week that's added? All right, let's roll. So everybody's a little different in terms of whether or not they use chores for allowance. I'm not going to go into parenting discussion about that. But I do know from some research that a lot of parents do it. And so I wanted to make sure that that was available there, right? So if I want to get my bike or art supplies that I was saving up for, I want to maybe I'll pick up some extra chores to earn some money a little faster. So it's doing that. And while it's doing that, let me just see if there was anything else I really wanted to make sure we had significant. We do have a few more minutes. We've only been at this about 10, I think. I do still want to come out with a 1-page brief that will talk about the opportunity as well as potential roadmap features. So we're going to jump to Claude for that in a moment. So what I'm going to do, assuming this functional prototype is at least good enough to where I want it right now for this lightning lesson, I'm going to ask V0 to give me a list of features, and then I'm going to take that list over into Claude and add some more information to get that 1 page. All right, it's finishing up here, hopefully. What do we got going on? It's generating the chores card. Okay, good. That's what we need. And again, I didn't tell it the chores or anything like that, but let's see. Oh, earn extra money. Okay, that's nice. Complete chores to earn an allowance. Great. So I can make my bed for 50 cents. Oh, no, I added my balance just went up. Again, I didn't tell it that. This is great. I'm not going to mow the lawn for $3. That's terrible. That's a bad deal. But I will definitely do the dishes for $1, and I'll take out the trash. Sure. So I can do that, add a little bit more. That's great. Did it change? It looks like it added a little bit more on the animation. It's very subtle, but I'll show that in a second again. Looks like we've got more educational content, spending tips. Do I really need this? Oh my God, my kids needed that advice. Compare prices. Try waiting a day to avoid impulse buying. Oh, great advice. Um, yeah, see, savings. Okay, that chart didn't change because we didn't really ask it to. Got some more savings facts. And charity, we've got some more why giving matters. Okay, awesome. Awesome. We could do more to this. I hope you realize that. But we've been at this for, I think, about 10, maybe 12 minutes, and we have something pretty decent. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and share this out. Um, and I believe this should do that. Let's see if this is, I get confused on this sometimes. There we go. So actually what I don't want to do it this way. Sorry, I want to deploy it. And ah, add it to a project to deploy. That's right. We're going to create a new project. We're going to say this is lightning lesson. Good. It's added to a project. Now we're going to deploy it. And then what the deployment will do is I'll get a URL that I could send to anyone and they could go ahead and play around with this. So I could, send that off to my CEO or VP of product or a potential investor or whoever else. So while it's doing that, let me go ahead and ask it. Can you please output a feature list so I can use that to build a business case and a one-page brief? Okay, so we're going to go get a feature list. Looks like it's still deploying. Jane, it would do different because the way that AI works, it's not programmatic, but it's probabilistic. If I go into the exact same prompts, it's going to be a little different and it's going to go different directions and do different things. Okay, awesome. I've got a long feature list. I'm just going to go ahead and copy that. It looks like we are deployed. We are, so I have this URL that just takes me nice and pretty right here to the functional prototype. Okay, I'm going to switch to Claude for my sharing, and we're going to start here. I have an idea for an app for kids to track their allowance balances. This is targeted primarily at kids age 6 to 12. The issue that I want to take advantage of is the fact that kids at around age 6 are ready to start earning allowance and learning about money, but they don't really get a smartphone to manage it themselves until about 12 years old. So I'm trying to create an app that would live on the parent's phone that would allow the kids to track their allowance balances, track how much they save, track how much they save for charity, and track how much they have to spend. I've created a functional prototype already, and it has the following features in it. So I'm just going to paste the features. Uh, can you think strategically and let me know what you think in terms of the idea, the opportunity, the competitive market, as well as potential roadmap features beyond what's in the prototype? So I'm not going to ask it for one page yet. I'm just going to kind of let it go think. All right, so let's look at this. Okay, good. So market opportunity. Oh, timing is excellent. Okay, fine. I don't know if that's true, but financial literacy, definitely. This 6 to 12 age gap is interesting. So traditional piggy bank apps, Greenlight, Go Henry, but these are all focusing on older kids with their own devices. Physical piggy banks lack engagement and tracking. Yeah. Banking apps aren't designed for joint parent-child, right? When you get into a banking app, it's a whole different ballgame, right? And in terms of regulations and all that, but this is simple, just tracking. So focus on younger demographic, addressing the pre-smartphone gap. Three bucket system teaches balanced money management. Okay, good. So this is now here, look, a future roadmap. Okay, multiple child profiles. Ooh, a family mode where siblings can collaborate. That's an interesting idea. A parent dashboard. Yeah, there's definitely got to be a parent view in there somewhere. You could longer term thinking about, banking partnerships, or maybe as they get older, closer to 12, that may be the time to introduce that. Yeah, transition tools. Okay, great. Oh, here, growth opportunities, partner with schools, revenue models, market expansion. Awesome. Okay, so can you create a one-page brief that I can use to share with a potential investor slash business partner? I'd like this to include the opportunity, the market landscape, as well as potential future roadmap and possible business models. Okay, so now we've got a one page. It's nice. Okay, executive brief, opportunity, market validation, product overview, competitive landscape, growth strategy, business model, financial projections. I don't know where it came up with these numbers. I would very much want to either remove them or understand them because, heck, in year five, if I'm making $45 million on this. um, AIs have still a habit on occasion of doing some hallucination. And when they hallucinate, it's important for humans to at least kind of spot check these things and keep an eye on what they're doing. And a lot of times they will, because AI is programmed and trained to try to satisfy and make us happy, they will start to make up some numbers. So I would actually go back and say, remove that, because it's definitely talking about a lot more than I would want it to. But it's 8:23 here in Seattle. I think I jumped into this at about 8:05. So in 18 minutes, I've managed to create a first draft of a one page and a first draft of a functional prototype. Like I said, I'm not going to ship these off sight unseen and say these are ready to go, but I hope I've managed to convince you all that this kind of progress in 18 minutes was unheard of and practically impossible just a short while ago, and is game changing. Let me just jump back into my PowerPoint. I have one or two slides left, and then I'm going to start taking questions. Let's go here and there and there. Okay, so in less than 24 hours, part of this world's already going to start celebrating New Year. The rest of us will shortly follow. So happy New Year early to everyone. I'm going to ask you once again, though, that question that I wanted you to reflect on, which is in 2025, which side of that divide do you or your team want to be on? And I think I know the answer to that, and you're already predisposed to the right answer to that by being here today. But I do want you to think, pretty seriously about that, because this stuff is happening. It's happening fast, and that divide is already starting to occur. We're seeing that already. So quick brief of class I have coming up where I do a lot more of this stuff. And then I'll stop and take questions in a moment here. AI driven product leadership. It's a 3-week class, normally $3.99. You get a promo code Rapid Lightning. QR code there will take you there as well. By being here today, that'll get you $50 off. Who's it designed for? Product leaders, senior level product managers, or aspiring product leaders, startup founders who act like product leaders. What's included? You'll get 6 interactive live sessions. Those are 90 minutes apiece. Lots of live demos like this. And they're not as rushed because we have more time than the 20 minutes I gave myself. 4 projects to apply the learnings to your actual work environment. You'll get direct access to me throughout the entire course. A one-on-one session with me in prep for your final project. And through Maven, you'll get a certificate upon completion. Things you'll learn, not limited to just this, but some of the things you'll learn. How do I use AI to help improve my stakeholder communications? When I was acting daily as a product manager, stakeholder communications were what I lived and died on. And so, can I use AI to get better at those? You do, yes, for sure. How do I go from idea to market validation to functional requirements to a working prototype? Kind of similar to what we did here, but a little bit more robust. How do I use AI for that? You'll learn that. How do I create a plan for me and my team to become AI capable? You'll learn that. How do I update the way of working in our team because we want to enable and build AI features? You'll learn that as well. It's not the same to build an AI feature as it is to build a non-AI feature. And how do I stay AI capable going forward? Because this stuff is changing all the time. Um, uh, oh, somebody marked it up. You'll learn that as well. Okay. Finally, a little bit about me. Where did I go to school? I went to UCLA Engineering School, UCLA Business School. I've worked at a variety of different large tech companies. I teach. I'm a strategy professor at business school at both Seattle University and University of Washington. People often ask, why do I teach? I teach product managers because I love watching them get the most out of the best job in the world because I've loved it. And there's the code. I'll leave that up on screen for another minute or two. If you want to grab that to sign up, that code includes the promo code, so you'll get the $50 off. And it's 8:27 here in Seattle. I'm going to stop talking and open it up for questions. I will scroll through the chat to find some as well. But if you've got a question, please just go ahead and unmute yourself and ask away.
Hi, could I just elevate a question that was in the chat?
Of course.
If the prototype, once it's created, is that directly usable within Figma? Like, is there some kind of linkage there for you to then modify it and take it on
Yeah,
and make it your own?
the short answer is yes. As you saw, it was outputting actual code. And so you could, I think I even saw the question run through in chat as well. You could just take those files and hand them off to a developer or, and grow and build from there or, introduce new Figma screens as the UI, things like that. So it's a functional prototype, but it's, written with actual real React code underneath it. So short answer to that question is yes. All right, other questions in here. I did see somebody asked about what I was using for dictation. It's a tool called Better Dictation. It's fantastic. Um, Better Dictation, highly recommend it. You are measured by the quality of your team's output. Yes. uh, Worse yet, as a product leader, I've learned you're measured oftentimes by the worst performer on your team, which means your focus as a product leader has to be on constantly up leveling your team. Because that's how you will get recognized and how you'll get rewarded. Sebastian raised his hand. Go ahead.
Hi, Michael. So how well would it do if you ask it to save and retrieve data to the database and make it closer to a real app?
It would be fine. I mean, it would if I had said, okay, now, if I had asked it to, when I add chores, maintain that amount, or if I adjust things, maintain that amount. Like, so you're talking about like maintaining state within the demo itself. Is that what you're asking about?
Yeah, I mean, ideally, write some code to connect to a database, save it, and read from it.
Yeah. I mean, that would be you could do that, and I've seen people do that as well. I mean, what we were showing right was not connected to anything, no back end persistence. But you're absolutely right. Take that, write some code to maintaining a database of a user profile and the balances. Yeah, that's not very difficult to do at all.
I mean, it will do that. It might be able to do that for us, right?
Yeah, it's a good question. I suspect it could do some, if not all of that. Admittedly, I'm not a developer. I'm a product guy, and so I necessarily wouldn't be doing that. I was looking for always trying to get to a point where I could prove out a great product and a great opportunity, and then collaborate with engineers to build it out properly. So I'm not the right person to answer that question, I don't think.
All right, sounds good. Thank you very much, Michael.
All right. Yeah, thank you, Sebastian. Thanks for joining. Shashwat, I don't know about the order on this, but that's how the order is on my screen. So Shashwat, why don't you go ahead? You got your hand up.
Sure. Hey, Michael. Hello, everyone. So I'm currently a internal kind of technical program manager. I have worked on a internal product at PayPal. So as I kind of learn about all these AI tools and kind of AI product manager path, initially, I mean, like from internal perspective, you might not be able to kind of move to like a customer facing product. So how let's say person with the internal platform or product manager experience utilize those tools for internal, because
Yeah.
initially we can do prototypes for internal teams for software or data teams and things like that. So I was just curious what tools or how what approach would you suggest? Thank you.
Yeah, so there's a lot of other uses for AI, which I didn't even touch on in this lightning lesson, that a product manager for an internal platform-based product could use. Stakeholder communication. It's important that all your stakeholders are up to speed on what's happening on a regular basis, but you can't inform engineering stakeholders the same way you inform the CEO, the same way you inform the marketing team, which may not be involved in internal, or finance or operations. And so tuning your stakeholder communications to the different audiences, AI is a great help with that. Coming up with some ideas of ways to improve, or looking at usage data and having the AI analyze where there's some issues or where there's some opportunities. So there's a lot of different other uses for AI besides just prototyping, where prototyping may not make as much sense in the example that you mentioned. So I think there's a bunch of different ways. We talk about a lot of those in the class as well.
All right, thank you.
Gurvinder.
Amazing session, and my head is just exploding with ideas right now on what I can prototype. And I use
Yeah.
Perplexity .ai and Claude together to brainstorm
Yep.
on high-level ideas, and I found that was very helpful before I bring it to a tool like VDev, and I use AWS
Agreed.
Q developer for some of this for internal stuff. My question is uh, twofold. One, what is the mindset needed for the teams? And it's again preparing your team to adopt AI in their everyday tool. And the second question, you can choose to take it or leave it, is how do you address the fears when you can prototype this quickly, and the developers, the UX team, the other guys, they're just running for the hills. If you can do this in an hour,
Yeah.
and how do you address their fears of job loss or however? So I'll leave it with you. Thank you again for the session.
Yeah. Refresh my memory. What was the first question again?
Sorry, the
Totally
first
blanked. What
question
was the?
is, what is the mindset needed for the teams to
Yeah.
develop, to adopt AI?
So the mindset is you got to be open to trying new things. You got to be willing to experiment. You got to be willing to learn, and you got to be willing to start somewhere. I found a lot of people are sort of deer in headlights. AI, there's so many tools, they constantly change and improve. They don't know where to begin, or they've tried and initially you get some lousy results, and you're like, okay, whatever, and they move on. Um, so to me, the best way to approach it is very intentionally, right? I'm going to try this, and then I'm going to try that, and then I'm going to go from there, right? So very stepwise and very intentionally, in such a way that you actually learn and grow, and not just sort of give up after trying once or twice. In terms of fear, look, I don't think AI is going to take my job or a product manager's job away, at least not anytime soon. But a product manager who knows how to use AI is certainly going to take away a job of somebody who doesn't. Same thing with engineers, same thing with UX designers. So I think that the important part here is I didn't render a UX designer and an engineer useless. What I did was I got them out of the process of doing a prototype, and I let them focus on the work that they do for actual user testing or actual product itself. And then I can go and be a little more self-sufficient and pitch my ideas. And then I can come back when it's ready and we want to actually do proper design work on this, not just the stuff that AI came up with and what I just came up with, or proper development. That's when, so I didn't render them useless. I just rendered their time more I'm allowing their time to be more focused on important tasks at hand, is the way I look at it. Matthew.
Hey there. Thanks for the great session, Michael. You already answered my first question, was how to keep learning from you. Because this was great. But my second question is about how would you continue this process into next steps, and would that change depending on organization? So if you're in a early stage startup versus a pretty mature organization focused in on a single product area. I asked earlier about bringing in design system, such like that, but I guess, let's say I export this to Figma, I mess around with it, get it to where I like it. Should I then put this back into this tool, move to other tools, hand this off to designers? I'm sure there's multiple answers, but what do you see as possible paths from what you've shown us today?
Yeah, it's gonna ultimately depend on what your next step is, right? So the tool shouldn't dictate what you do next. It's kind of what you want to do next, right? So if this was me trying to get my boss to let me work on a project, probably this may have been sufficient enough to do that. If this was me trying to get something together so that we can put this in front of some users to see if they react, how they react to it, right? If you're just using this as part of your continuous discovery, then that's going to be your next step, right? Let's get with the, either go directly to users, or if you have a user research team, go there with them. If this is about, hey, we've got this is good enough, let's put this into production and see how it works, then I go straight to the engineers. So I think it just depends on ultimately what I want to do with it next. And that's entirely going to be dependent on, am I at a startup? Am I at a giant company? So if I'm at a big company, I would have definitely built this prototype with at least the look and feel, if not the actual design components of whatever the design guidelines were, right? Because the moment you show it to somebody and it looks different, they're immediately going to be not, connecting the dots. So I wouldn't have been so not lazy. I wouldn't have been so careless with the UX if I was working in a large company that had an established design guideline. So I think it all just depends on what you want to do next, would determine what tools to use next.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for joining. Natalie.
Yeah,
Oh, you muted again, Natalie, somehow.
whoops. You're right about the overwhelm. I feel like there's so many tools and I'm not working at the moment, so I don't have the business, situations to be really playing with these. You work at a university, they probably pay for you to try all these different ones. If you had to break it down to your like top 3 to 5 must-haves that you've played with and think are critical to the PM's toolbox, what would those be? Would that better dictation be one, and then VO be
Yeah.
one?
Yeah. I work as a university as an adjunct professor, so they barely pay me anything to teach them
Oh, okay.
classes.
Sorry about
But
that.
I do subscribe. No, that's okay. But I do subscribe to a lot of these services, and this is all part of my own coaching and consulting practice. But what would be like if what would be the ones? The one I use most, hands down, is Claude. I think it's the best thought partner. I think it's the best writing assistant, which are the most common things I do. And I do think, barring some of the recent errors, and I don't know why that was, I'll have to look into that. It's great at doing some basic prototyping as well. So to me, Claude is it's the last one I would give up. Let's put it that way. I use Perplexity quite a bit. So those are probably my top two. If you're going to be doing things like I was demoing, prototyping, V0 is fantastic. So that would be one, but it's not going to be, everything else. So it kind of depends. But if you just kind of want a sort of general purpose AI tool, to me, it's be Claude and then Perplexity. And then I would put Chat GPT in there as well. And these things are, the AI that I worked with today is the worst AI you're ever going to see, because these things just keep getting better every day. So, and they get better at different rates. So that's why I'm always kind of checking them around. But to me, it's Claude and Perplexity is the short answer.
Okay, can you say one quick thing about the differences between those two? I've been playing with Perplexity and I like that it has the hyperlinks, but what's the difference?
Perplexity has Yeah, so the difference is Perplexity has access to the live internet, so it acts more like a search engine, but an AI search engine. So it's intelligent, it's, filtering responses, it's doing a little bit more investigation, not just sort of returning against keyword matching like Google does. Perplexity also is great at citing sources. So if you get something from it and you're like, I don't know what that is, you can click on the source and go directly to the source material to validate or verify. So those are kind of the way Perplexity works, and that's I tend to use it more like that. Claude is, to me, Claude is like a great intern sitting next to me that I don't have to pay more than $20 a month to. I can, I use it to ask questions and bounce ideas off of and review writing and things like that. Claude is not connected to the internet. Claude's currently as updated as April 2024. I'm suspecting they're going to do another update because that's starting to feel pretty outdated right now. But again, if you're not doing anything that requires knowledge of what happened in the last 8 months in world events or whatever, then it's fine. And Claude is unique in that it has a really big context window. And context window basically is how much the AI remembers of your conversation. So, at some point, AI, as your conversation with AI gets longer and longer and longer, it starts to forget things in the past. It takes a lot longer for Claude to start forgetting things. That's been its unique differentiator. A lot of the other tools are trying to catch up to it and are increasing their context windows. Eventually, that won't even be a thing we talk about. But for now, I like Claude because of its context window and its thought partnership style, and Perplexity as kind of a search engine replacement. Jane.
Yeah, hi. Um, my question is actually very similar to Natalie, but it was kind of in between custom GPTs and Claude. So I've been going into Claude a lot, and I really like basically everything that you mentioned. But I've heard that custom GPTs that are like made specifically for X, Y, and Z, they're very powerful as well. So I was just wondering if you played around with both, and like I basically kind of want to know if I should put a little pause on Claude and explore custom GPTs, or just keep going with Claude.
So great question. Thank you. Custom GPTs, yeah, can be really powerful, and they can be really powerful because you can open them up to others. So for example, I'm starting in January, I'm going to be teaching strategy to some graduate students, and I'm trying an experiment. I created a custom GPT. Basically, I uploaded the textbook as well as like all the lecture slides, and the GPT is meant for students to be able to go and ask questions about, and hey, what is this and what is that, and I've asked the GPT to kind of always like prompt questions back to the student, so try to help it be more interactive and learning. So that's a great example of I think where a custom GPT is powerful. Claude's answer to that, it's not the same, but it's a pretty powerful tool though, is called projects. And basically you can create a project and you can dump a ton of knowledge into it, right? So I have a project, for example, on helping me with the lesson plans for the class or something like that, right? And so what do I have dumped in there? I have the textbook dumped in there, but I also have all my lesson plans from the past, and I have the syllabus and all that stuff, right? So that's kind of one. I also have a project for the course that I run because I'm always tuning it and updating it. And so the project is like a body of knowledge that will always it'll always look at, in addition to the large corpus of knowledge that it looks at generally. And so it's great for very tuned interactions. So Claude has projects. I think there's nothing wrong with put a pause on Claude, go use ChatGPT for a month or 2 months, see how you like it, go back to the other. This is how
Yeah,
we have to figure this stuff out. Just learn by
nice.
doing.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't know there was project. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Ameya.
Can you hear me?
Ameya.
Ah,
Oh, yes, now I can.
okay. Sorry about that. My question was, I am currently looking for work. I have worked as a product manager in the past. And as part of like just keeping my brain engaged, I wanted to build a portfolio of some product work that I've done, or like some of the prototypes that I could maybe build using, say, V0 and all the tools that are out there. My question specifically is, how did you get to the point where you could articulate what you wanted from the AI so well in V0? Was it just a lot of practice and trial and error? Did you use, say, Claude to refine your thinking? How did you sort of experiment?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is some trial and error.
Okay.
An example, I was prepping for, practicing and prepping for today. And when the first one I did with V0, I had said I want an iOS app. And then I said, okay, and at the end of it, running through everything, it didn't give me an actual prototype. It gave me
Right.
iOS code that I could then take and install. And I was like, okay, well, that's not helpful. So I had to add to my prompt, no, I want that running in the console. So a lot of it's trial and error and practice. There are some good best practices out there in terms of how do you construct a well thought out prompt. Things
Yeah.
like, indicate a little bit of guidelines around your expectations. Like, I want this kind of information back. Telling it what role to play. I want you to think like a strategic advisor. I want you to
Right,
think
right,
like
right.
a
Yeah.
CFO. So
Yeah.
there are some best practices, but a lot of it's just some trial and error.
Okay. Okay. Maybe I'll even try using Claude to refine it, so I can maybe it might work.
Sure.
Thanks.
And that's another great thing is sometimes ask the AI, hey, how should I best prompt you with this? Or how would you
Right.
improve this? Or, you can actually work with it as well. Sorry. My dog / coworker / boss. One of them. Okay. Any other questions? Go ahead and either unmute or raise your hand. I am also going to keep going through the chat. Did I answer your question, Amanda?
Yeah. Yeah. You did.
Awesome. Great. Thanks.
Hey, Michael,
Gurvinder?
quick question. Oh, sorry.
So my question is,
No, go for it.
I'm generating a lot of code now with AI, with the different tools, and how do I keep that private? Because I'm thinking, by default, even paid pro versions learn from your code, right? And I'd like to keep it private. And short of going the enterprise route for cloud or Claude, or going into AWS or somewhere else and cordoning it off and saying, don't learn from my data and don't let it escape. Any thoughts on how do you keep private use of cloud LLMs private?
Yeah. So, first of all the tools will allow you to opt in or opt out of whether or not they can use what you provide to train against. And so you can definitely opt out of that. I'm not as concerned about it because ultimately it's not like they're going to take this and then regurgitate it right back to someone like, oh, hey, I just learned this great idea. I'm going to share it with you. Right. They're kind of incorporating it into the overall learning. But you can always turn that ability off. And so and to me, I mean, think of the body of knowledge they're already trained on, right? In fact, I've already started hearing people saying like, okay, they're trying to figure out what's next because it's basically already, these AI models have already been trained on everything that's out there, right? That's out there publicly available, the entire internet, right? And so, you know one little thing, whatever I add is not really even, it's a drop, right? If even that. So to me is a couple things, a couple responses. One is you can always disable that function. And the other is, if you sort of think about the trade-off of how much value I get from it compared to, I don't know, a slight risk of it learning from what I've put in there. They don't balance out, in my opinion. It makes a lot more sense to just take advantage of these tools, but do it in a mindful and intentional way.
Thanks, Michael. I mean, I even run it locally with something called LM Studio, where it's private on my Mac and doesn't escape, right? And I have options for that.
Yeah.
But my concerns are higher because I lead a cybersecurity team. So I have to be the role model for this. So my bar is
Exactly.
very high to begin with, but for brainstorming, yes. And that's why I wanted to do the enterprise version of Claude.
Yeah, no, and I can appreciate it as a cybersecurity person, you want to make sure. So I think that, I mean, there's ways to do it. you know, I think it's a longer answer, but you know, whatever the needs are. I mean, obviously, if you're working on, you know, sensitive, you know, national security or government, you know, those are things you're not going to be putting in there. But I think there's ways to mitigate those risks as well.
And I didn't see it in Claude to turn it off. I think it's just by default, but that's the reason why I asked. Thank you for the answer.
Correct. Yeah, I think it is by default in Claude. I'm going to look for hands. It's probably easiest. I realize we still have a fair number of people on this call. So raise a hand if you have a question, and I'm going through the chat. I'm a little behind though, so I'm going through trying to find if I missed any. Jane, if you redid these prompts, yeah, you'd get, as I mentioned, I think before on the call, probabilistic software will not give you the same answer every time. Are you able to edit the prototype? I think I answered that. So yes, the answer is yes. Does it save the code generated somewhere to give it to developers? Yes, it's locally, but yeah, you can definitely do that. Does this run the risk of making UX designers, potential developers unnecessary? I don't think so, but it does make UX designers and engineers and product managers who don't embrace this technology, they will be quickly unnecessary. Can you paste that prompt to Claude in the chat, please? Matthew, are you still on? If you are, raise your hand just real quick, and then I can go ahead and do it. If you're not, this prompt as well. Okay, I'll take a look and see. I don't want to do it right now because I want to keep going through this list here. Even views or a prompt would be great if you could share. Yeah, for sure. You know what I'll do is I'll send an email out after this, and I'll include the prompts that I did. Let me just take a note of that email prompts, so everyone will get them. Voice input, better dictation, I think I mentioned, and I don't always use better dictate. Sorry, I don't always use just voice. I find that it's much faster though for me, and I'm actually finding that it's a matter of personal preference. I do type a fair bit as well. The final project versus the 4 projects, Catherine's question. The 4 projects are kind of as we learn different things in the course and kind of how do you apply those to your place of work or what it is that's relevant to what you're doing. The final project is kind of wrapping it all up and saying, okay, how am I going to have this, you know, how am I going to take what I've learned and continue growing in my knowledge of and usage of AI going forward. So it's a little bit more of a, I don't know, call it like a capstone project, kind of brings everything together. Any other questions out there? I'm still getting through the chat. And if I missed them, I apologize. Oh, good. People sharing some other different tools. That's awesome. I love that. Excellent. Oh, Poe. Yeah, it's another one. Good one. Ooh, Lovable. Never heard of that. I'll check that out. Who else has questions out there? Like I said, I'll stick around and till we get them all answered. And you can ask me anything. You can ask me about the demo. You can ask me about the class. You can ask me about my dog. You can ask me about my experience with allowance with my kids. Perplexity, think of it as a Google had a baby with ChatGPT or Claude. That's fantastic. Oh, Perplexity Pro. I do use it. So I actually Perplexity Pro is doing some deals where if you're, for example, if you're a subscriber to Lenny's newsletter, you'll get a year of Perplexity Pro for free. If you're a Zoom subscriber, I think you get a year of Perplexity Pro for free. So there's some opportunities out there to do that. I use it, so I'm getting it bundled with other stuff, but I do think it's worth it. It's a little different for me though. I subscribe to a lot of these things because this is where I'm spending my time and focusing a lot of my energy right now. There are these tools look at this. Wow, this is a great list from somebody. Love that. Yeah, it's a good point. Catherine says hesitant to be reliant on tools from smaller companies because the pace of innovation is moving so fast. That's fair. I think it's um, some of those newer, smaller companies are going to actually, potentially have some real breakthrough innovations, and if they do, they'll probably get, swallowed up by the bigger companies at some point. Um, but they're all monthly subscriptions, so turn them on, turn them off. It's really uh, quite amazing. My Using AI for travel planning is a game changer, in my opinion. If you, to me, travel planning, the one thing I always notice when I plan a trip is like I have 100 tabs open, right? Because it's like, what about this? What about that? What about using AI to help with that is game changing. Sebastian raised a hand. Go for it.
Hey, Michael. Yeah, I think what the demo you showed us was probably it generate React code. So I'm guessing that's a web app. So it does just as well with Android or iOS then?
Yeah, if you want, you can ask it, and it'll generate code for Android or iOS. Yeah. At least
Okay.
that's my knowledge. And again, I'm going to qualify that by saying I'm a product guy, not an engineer. But what I love about these tools is that they let me be even more dangerous with engineering than I typically am. I went to school as an engineer, but I don't write code regularly or at all. But they give me that ability. So I'm pretty sure.
Okay, I'm an engineer. That's why I keep on asking these engineering questions. Sorry.
No, that's great. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Love that. Okay. Oh, there's a couple. Did we just get kicked out? Oh, no, that was weird. My screen just changed. Everyone's still there. Okay, good. Betterdictation.com, I think, is the link to get it. And it's if you like, it's fantastic, and it's $24 and it's a one-time. It's not even a subscription. Well worth it if you want. Several people have mentioned they are unemployed. I know it's rough out there, folks. Let's hope for 2025 to be better. What do I see as the most valuable investment of time to give yourself the most competitive edge? Building AI tools or learning how to build with AI to improve your own efficiency is something else. Yeah, uh, huh. I think that I think it's a little bit of both, to be perfectly honest. I think you need to use AI tools to make yourself more productive, more efficient, because that's going to naturally lend itself to being more productive, more efficient as a product person when you do get a job. I also think you need to know how to build AI features or products. Um, I don't think you need to be an expert in it per se, but I think you need to understand the differences, and you need to at least be knowledgeable enough about it to talk about it in an interview, or if you get the job, actually be effective when you hit the ground running, which is why I've included some of that in the course. We do spend one session talking about, how does, sort of traditional agile change when you deal with AI enabled features and things like that. And the other really important reason, not only is it different, so you have to be able to work with engineers and testers differently, but all your stakeholders probably don't get the fact that it's different, and that's a real challenge as a product person. Being able to explain to your CEO what's different about building an AI feature versus a non-AI feature. Why do I have to worry about model drift, or why is this, probabilistic instead of deterministic results? Why can we not be sure, the model's tuned properly? Why do we have to constantly check for model bias? Things like that. So I think you really want to be able to understand enough to be able to try to educate your stakeholders enough so they understand the nuance. All right. Any other questions out there? I've gotten through the chat. So if you have a question in the chat and I haven't answered it, either put it in the chat again or raise your hand.
Hey, Michael, I have a
Session.
question.
Yeah, welcome. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so I think I may be a little bit early to the product game. I was a product owner for, about 2 years at a large fintech shop, looking to try to kind of get fully immersed in product management, but it's really quite hard to even get interviews and do well on the interviews? I guess, what do you kind of recommend for me to kind of get ahead of this stuff for, and kind of devote my time quite well to this stuff? Lofty question, I know, but
I would say a couple things.
anyway.
No,
Yeah.
no, that sigh was because I really empathize
Yeah.
with you and with a lot of folks out there that are struggling right now. And I hate it. I really do. Side note, I think every CEO should once a year mystery interview for their company so they can see how bad the experience is.
Yeah.
Um, so what would I do? Well, so first of all, I don't know of many people, if any, that have really gotten interviews just by sending in a resume. I think those the people are getting inundated with resumes. AI is sort of purging through them. So to get an interview, I think you really have to network your way in. So to me, I would focus on roles at companies where you know someone or you can get an introduction to someone so you can have somebody kind of pulling your way in there. Even if they don't have current roles now, if it's a big enough company, we're going to start seeing roles open up, especially as we hit the new year and new budgets get approved, things like that. So that's kind of the first thing I would do. The next thing I would do is, um, I would as an early career product manager, I would invest time in understanding the craft of product management, what it really means to be a product manager. I would highly recommend, if you haven't already, to read Inspired by Marty Kagan.
Yeah, I
That's kind of
just
the
bought it. It's coming today.
manifesto, I think, of sort of
It's perfect.
perfect. Read that, mark it up, and kind of digest that. I would do practice interviews, either with other colleagues or friends or with AI. Ask AI, say, hey, act like you're interviewing me for this, give it the job spec of what you're maybe thinking about, and you work for this company, you're an interviewer, hit me with some questions, right? So you could do that. Um, I would and then I would try to um, define a little bit of uh, what why you, right? So kind of what of your experience makes you or uniquely positions you as a product manager, right? Is your experience because you came from as a product owner, you kind of worked very closely with engineering teams, so you understand the needs of an engineering team maybe better than a normal product manager who's never worked super closely with an engineering team. So I would try to figure out what are the one or two things that distinguish you and really try to invest in those and lean on those.
Got it.
So hopefully that helped a little bit.
That helps. Thank you. Appreciate it. And very, very good lesson thus far. So I appreciate it.
And so somebody here suggested in the chat. Oh, thank you, by the way. Thank you. I appreciate that. Looks like you got a response. Definitely join one of Phil Terry's JSC job search councils and buy the book Never Search Alone. And the Slack group is free. So that's great advice as well from the community. Lisa's gotten interviews from just applying. I love it. Okay, thank you. It's a numbers game. Yeah, that's true. It's a tough question. Natalie.
Do you have one or two favorite newsletters that you follow? Just kind of the landscape of the AI tools. I don't want to go way deep and hear about models and how they're changing and all that, but just kind of the 10,000 foot view that a PM needs to have.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. There's a bunch of different ones, and they kind of new ones pop up and old ones go away. Let me I'm just trying to think for a second. There's one called the AI Rundown, which I kind of like. There's another one on LinkedIn called the World's Smallest AI Newsletter. Those are probably two that I would recommend. And I'm gonna send out an email with a prompt. I'll also indicate any newsletter suggestions as well. So look for an email from me a little later this morning. But
Awesome,
those
thanks.
two would be some. Um, does this work the same to prototype two-sided platforms? Oh, Happy New Year. Bonne année from Paris. Yes. Oh, love that. To prototype two-sided. Yeah, it would work to prototype two-sided platforms. I have done that where what I could have done, for example, I think that would get close to what you're saying in the example I gave was I could have done a parent interface. and been like, okay, the parent can go and modify something, and then it would modify it on the children's screen. And so you can, you definitely can prototype sort of multi-access tools or products. The book I recommended, yeah, thank you, Alvaro. Inspired by Marty Kagan. That's the first book any product manager should read, in my opinion. That's what I coach all the people I work with. Yeah. Oh, Gurvinder has newsletter recommendations, so connect with him. I think I answered, hopefully, the question about the two-sided platform. If I don't, thank you. You're welcome. Any other questions? Still got a few folks out there. Anyone have an exciting New Year's plans? I don't know where 2024 went. It went really fast. Predictions for 2025. Oh, huh. Predictions for 2025. I don't know. I can barely predict what's going to happen tomorrow. I have some AI predictions for 2025. We're going to see, I mean, we're going to continue to see more of it. We're going to see, I think we're going to see AI agents become a really big thing. I think they're going to finally take some hold. AI agents being basically things that can actually act on your behalf. So I think that'll be something we see. I think we'll see some multimodal AI come around. So, you know, I can input text and voice and image and kind of, or output all of that. So kind of not having to be just sort of, I go here for images, I go here for text, things like that. Prototyping and presenting an idea will shrink in speed. Yeah, I think that's fair. There's a limit to that though, right? Which is like the limit of like rational thought. I mean, you know, the output from AI, from these LLMs and these generative AI platforms will continue to get better and better. We'll have less hallucinations. We'll have more, you know, tuned output. But I still think, you know, I never take what AI gives me and just call that done, right? I'm always, to me, AI will get me somewhere between 75 and 90% of the way there, in minutes rather than hours or days. And that to me is the value. And then I will sort of take it that last 10 to 25%. But will we get better? Will we start getting, you know, closer to the 90%? Maybe, I think. Yeah, idea is good enough to get inputs from the team, which will make it useful. 100%. I mean, to me, look, early in my career, I understood the value of visually showing something, as opposed to just talking about it. I would, you know, I had this idea in my head and I'd go and run into my VP's office and I'd explain to him and he'd be like, what? I don't get it. Okay, well, let me draw it up, or, you know, and I would spend a lot of time trying to mock it up in PowerPoint or whatever. The fact that I can, you know, actually create a functional prototype in almost no time and not have to bug any engineers or take them off of the important work they're doing, God, game changing, really important. Any other questions out there? You'll get a recording of this, I think in about a day or two. It'll get sent out. I will send out an email later today with the email with the prompts that I used, as well as newsletter suggestions. You guys, thank you so much for your time, for attending. I really appreciate it. Don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions. Michael@breakapencil.com. Happy New Year to everyone, and I hope to see you soon in another lightning lesson or in class. And thanks. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thanks again.
Bye-bye. Thank you.